Today's story is titled A Mouthful of Roots by K.V. Harrow. The link to the story is in the description below. Please enjoy. My grip tightened around the sink as my tongue caressed the polished edge of my final molar. I could feel its roots releasing, and I jerked my head upward to make the feeling last. It watched over me in a wave of relief, rising until the tooth gave way and rolled to the back of my mouth. I tried to prod the exposed hole with the tip of my tongue, hoping to taste what was left of the fading pleasure, but I could only taste copper. The wound throbbed softly, taking the last of the feeling with it. I lowered my head and spat it into the bathroom sink. The tooth clinked against the porcelain, then slowly trailed towards the drain. I felt an impulse, a dire need to save this part of myself, now sliding towards the blackness. I could not allow it to be lost. Frozen in place, I watched the molar drift, carried by a blanket of blood and saliva. All my muscles tensed. Just before it vanished, my hand shot forward and snatched it from the sink. I sank to the bathroom floor with the molar clenched in my fist. I held it so tightly my knuckles hurt, afraid someone might take it from me. Then I cried. It had started 31 days earlier. There was nothing remarkable about the first day I lost a tooth. My alarm woke me at the usual time, and my store-brand coffee tasted as stale as ever. I made breakfast without much appetite, burnt my toast a little, and scrolled my phone long enough for the coffee to go lukewarm. It was the kind of morning I usually forgot before lunch. After brushing my teeth, I leaned towards the mirror and noticed something strange. The cheap LED hanging from the fixture emphasized the abnormal position of one of my canines. I remember feeling it then, an unfamiliar compulsion, the need to claim the tooth, to yank it free and keep it safe, to cherish it. The sensation washed over me as I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, eyes fixed on the crooked canine. I had to leave for work, but I stayed there longer than I should have. The thought of it followed me through the day. Whenever I had the chance, I touched the loose tooth with my tongue, feeling its edge, testing how far it would move. I told myself I was only checking whether it had gotten worse. That was not really true. I knew it was wrong. Looking back, those first moments barely felt real. As soon as I returned home, I went back to the bathroom mirror. I inspected my face, pulled my eyelids down, and traced along my jaw, searching for swelling, bruises, anything that might explain the loose tooth. I found nothing. When I opened my mouth, the canine had tilted farther forward. I stared at it for a long time. At first, I tapped the tooth with my index finger. Every touch sent a soft tingle through my mouth, spreading outward until it reached my hands and feet. The tapping soon turned into gentle rubbing. I wanted more. My eyes closed, and the pressure of the tooth between my fingertips made my body tense. Saliva slid down my chin and dribbled onto the bathroom floor and into the sink. I pressed harder, chasing the warmth through my jaw. Then the feeling stopped. When I opened my eyes, I saw my spit-covered hands holding a small white object, my tooth. It did not hurt. There was no blood. For a second, all I felt was disappointment. I held the canine in my palm, wanting to drop it into the drain. Instead, I placed it on the sink's edge and stared at it for several minutes. It looks less like a part of me now. The roots were black, with dry, earthy crust clinging to them. When I touched it, some of the crust came away. I rubbed it between my fingers and felt a faint trace of pleasure. I bent over the sink until my mouth touched the porcelain. The canine lay near the edge, wet and white against the basin. I pressed my lips around it and drew it into my mouth. Flavors of porcelain, dried water, and dust filled my mouth as my tongue traced the surface. I swallowed it before I could stop myself. The air around me feels colder than usual, but there is no draft against my face. I try to look around the room. No light shines through the slits in my blinds. No cars pass outside. No voices drift up from the street. Usually, that kind of silence feels peaceful. Tonight, it feels wrong. The room feels foreign, as if the air has been sitting there for too long. My lips are dry. When I try to lick them, my tongue finds the socket where my missing tooth used to be. I let it rest there for a moment before sliding it across my other teeth. There is a faint earthy taste in my mouth, like damp leaves pressed into the ground after rain. As I suck my teeth to get a better taste, I almost expect some of them to shift, but they all seem firmly attached to the bone beneath. A thud. I tried to get up to search for whatever made the noise, but stopped before my feet touched the floor. The room is still too dark to make sense of. I called out, hoping my voice will be enough to scare off whoever is there. Something moves to my right, then to my left. A soft, rhythmic rattling passes back and forth through the room. I try to locate it, but the sound will not stay in one place. Rattle. I struggle to control my breathing. I am too scared to move, though staying still does not feel safer. I stare down at my chest, then past my feet towards the end of the bed. The rattling moves again, slow and dry. I want to cover my face, but my hands won't move. Rattle.
Make it stop. Please, make it stop!
Rattle, rattle, rattle. A warm breath hits my face. I turn toward it. Two glassy eyes stare back at me. Wet hair clings to a balding scalp. Its long arms grip both sides of the bed frame. Something hangs in front of my face, rattling with a dull, ivory glint. I open my mouth and scream. Nightmares like that became common after losing my first tooth. They terrified me, but I did not wake from them the way I should have. I woke up feeling calmer, sometimes even relieved. After a while, I began to anticipate them. Each morning, I got out of bed, wiped the sweat from my face, and pulled at my lips in front of the bathroom mirror, counting the empty spaces. Some teeth had fallen out on their own. Some I had pulled myself. With every lost tooth, the warmth returned. Around this time, the bumps appeared. Small circular bruises, each marked by a pale, hard blotch at its center. They felt cold to the touch. One morning, I would find them on my arms or legs, and the next they would spread or shift somewhere else. I felt neither anxiety nor disgust. Instead, I prodded the blemishes, investigating them. The skin around each mark reacted to my touch, sending warm ripples through my body. The centers, however, hurt. A sharp, warming sting. Not yet. The room began to feel different. It no longer seemed so claustrophobic. I still spent most of my time there, but I no longer minded the closed door, the stale air, or the same four walls around me. I stopped asking myself whether I was getting worse. After a while, I started to believe it all had a reason. I kept returning to the lost teeth. I ran my fingers over their smooth surfaces, tracing the ridges of their roots. I kept them in a glass jar on the table beside my bed. I liked seeing them gathered in one place. From time to time, I would unscrew the lid and turn the jar gently in my hands, listening to the soft clatter they made against the glass. Over time, the compulsion changed. I began placing the teeth on my tongue, letting them sit there before rolling them around my mouth. Sometimes I chewed them, feeling them grind between my remaining molars, and swallowed them. Each time, the warmth returned. I told myself I was putting them back where they belonged. I also buried some, spending hours staring at the small heaps of dirt and waiting for a sign that something had taken root. Nothing ever did, but I kept checking. Time started to blur. I only felt clear right after losing a tooth. Everything else became easier to ignore. I stopped caring about food, showers, and clean clothes. Hunger came and went without much meaning. Some days, the teeth I swallowed felt like enough. I knew that could not be true, but I believed it anyway. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. My eyes were tired and bloodshot. My mouth was stained red. The gums had swollen around the empty spaces, soft and angry looking, leaving only one tooth far back in my mouth. I kept touching it with my tongue. It was still firm. That bothered me. I expected it to be painful. I expected a lot of blood, but I pulled slightly, and it came loose. It felt unreal to see the last tooth lying in my palm. I waited for the warmth to follow. Nothing came. Disappointment hit first, then anger. With the molar clenched in my fist, I struck the mirror and watched a crack split across my reflection. I struck it again, harder, until the stained glass broke apart over the sink. I didn't want it to be over. Not like that. Where was my reward? I rushed into the living room. The jar of teeth stood on the table, its surface smudged with dried blood and saliva. For a moment, I could only look at it. All those teeth gathered together. All that waiting. And now, the last one sat in my hand. I wanted to open the jar. I wanted to drop the molar inside and hear it join the others. But what then? Once the last tooth was inside, what would be left for me? No. Clutching the jar to my chest, I made my way back to the bathroom. When I unscrewed the lid, the smell of rot filled the room. I knew I would change my mind if I waited too long. I flipped the jar over the sink and watched the teeth clatter into the basin. In the shards of the broken bathroom mirror, my reflection smiled back with a toothless grin. I saw the blood before I felt it. Small streaks of red flowed from my gums and painted the porcelain. I tried to swallow, but my mouth kept filling. My nails dug into the sink.
Make it stop!
Without teeth, the words came out wet and wrong. I thought I would die there, alone on the cold bathroom floor, choking on my own blood. I clawed at my throat and begged whatever had done this to stop.
I'll do anything!
The warmth returned. I caught my breath. The bleeding stopped, and for a moment, I lay there in blood, too weak to move. Then the pain started. The bumps had risen. Every swollen mark had turned hard and white at the center, pressing against the skin from underneath. I had to get them out. I tried squeezing one of the larger bumps, but my skin held. Whatever was inside me was not sharp enough to break through on its own. So I gripped a shard of broken mirror glass and sliced into the blistered skin. The pain nearly made me drop it. I felt faint, but I knew I could not pass out. I pressed my forehead against the sink until the dizziness passed and squeezed the wound as hard as I could. A thick black liquid seeped out and ran down my arm. I cut deeper. I could feel the other bumps swelling across my body. There had to be hundreds. I wiped the black paste from my arm and lowered the shard back into the wound. My vision blurred, but I kept carving until something pale pressed through the opening. All I could do was watch as the little enamel bug worked its way free, dropped onto the tiles, and scurried away on the root-like legs. I sank to the floor and lay there, while more of them began to cut their way out of me. It was not over. I knew that much. Whatever had started this would come back tonight for the rest. Don't defile it.